starting.
We go back into open session, the call to order the El Dorado County Fire Protection District Board meeting. Can we get a roll call, please?
Director Bregman,
Here.
Director Brenton,
Here.
Director Evanston,
Here.
Director Ogan,
Here.
Director Gilchrist.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, a quorum has been established.
Thank you. Join me in the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're coming up to employee recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to bring forward, two of our permanent ambulance operators, Bradley Gates and Stephen Johnson, and, I hope we have a paramedic ambulance operator, however, he's about, 4 days away now from, going, he's one of ours, bridging over to the fire side, so.
Excellent.
October 23rd, probably one on station 19 begin his, training to be a firefighter. Mr. Johnson will be swinging up from 28 to 49 back to that spot, so. But I just want to ask them to come in and kind of publicly recognize, these are the two individuals that really built, the RFP and, you know, when we put together the RFP, for Medic 49, I gave it my best swag and we were successful, it worked. Brad reached out on his own, just said, hey, you know, here's my background, here's my skill set. If I can help, I'd love to help. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you all of my stuff from Medic 49, I promise not to be fun. Because we got it. But these two, you know, with the education, the history of their previous job and what they've done at the state level and at the local level and whatnot, really just, I mean, y'all saw the RFP they put together. You know, the outcome is the outcome, but, the outcome really had nothing to do with the quality of the RFP that these two individuals put together. When they started showing me the drafts, I was very impressed and a little bit embarrassed. Like, you just hired that May 49. You know, put that aside over here, you know. But really, they took it upon themselves. They did a bunch of work. The guys at 49 set up a little cubicle office in the back of the training room where Brad could go work at night and Stephen could work. And they were doing this, you know, days off, after hours, in between calls, you know, both of them working on busy medic care. So I just want to take the opportunity for me to recognize my appreciation for both of you for your work on this. And so we have certificates of commendation that are going to be presented to Bradley Gates and Stephen Johnson in recognition of their outstanding and dedicated service. We immensely commend you for your efforts in producing, creating, and executing the Medicare RFP and presentation. That's for October of 2023. So,
Thank you.
if there's anything that's left,
To the board, thank you for the opportunity and the confidence that you put in us to work on that RFP. It's a big honor actually to be asked to work on such a high level project in our positions as PAOs, and myself being relatively new here, I just started in June. So Chief mentioned we have a pretty extensive background in EMS prior to coming to El Dorado County, but it's been a good learning experience for myself, actually, really learning a lot about the political climate and environment in El Dorado County. You know, I'm confident we'll be successful in the next round. So here's to the first place losers, but we put together a really solid product, I thought. It sounds like most of you felt it was good as well. So I'm glad that we feel about that. So thank you for the opportunity and the recognition.
Yeah, second that. I totally appreciate the ability to get in, dive in, and I learned a lot about it being new as well, about the district, county, politics, and everything involved. And I hope it's not the last time that, you know, we're asked to get involved in something like that, because we're more than willing to jump in that. It was a pleasure to meet the board members and work with you guys as well on the project and move forward, and look forward to progressing EMS here in El Dorado County in the future. working with you guys. So thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, appreciate it. And you guys, you're welcome. to stay for the board meeting. I've looked if you got something to do. Thanks, appreciate it.
Okay. On to the consent calendar. All items approved on a single vote except those pulled for individual discussion and action. Anybody else to pull anything?
I just need to comment under, board comments in I got one thing I want to pull, so just for correction. It says under board comments, 2x2 meetings, it should have been instead of Turnbull and Parliament, it says, Parliament and, Eldorado Hills guy.
Oh, I don't.
I know. Yeah, that's correct.
All right, so, we need a roll call vote on this.
No, just.
Oh, no, just. Okay, all those in favor of the consent calendar?
I need a motion and a second.
Well, motion. Jumping ahead.
As amended.
Okay,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Moving on to public comment, item 7. Any person wishing to address the board on any item that is not on the agenda may do so at this time. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person.
I don't have any public online.
Okay, item 8, report of action taken in closed session pursuant to government code section 54-957 B1. Public employee performance evaluation, public employment title, fire chief. We agreed to extend the chief's employment term for another 2 years, and there'll be a contract written in amendment for that. I'll be signing it once it comes through the legal process. All right. Departmental matters, administrative, CFD goals and policies discussed and approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you'll note, in the staff report, staff is continuing to work with Capital Finance Public Group and Diamond Springs Fire District with regards to the implementation of our community facility district, the CFD. As presented to the board of directors during last month's regular meeting, the next step in the process is the approval adoption of the goals and policies. One of the priorities of our CFD process is to remain as close as possible to the current CFD process in Diamond Springs. Based on the discussion with the board, Capital Finance Group has provided a draft goals and policies document for the board to consider. This document was predicated on the Diamond Springs document while considering direction from the board and suggested changes from Capital Public Finance Group. Staff from Capital Public Finance Group will be present to provide additional information and dialogue with the board. And staff would recommend 2 options for the board of directors. Option number 1 would be to approve the goals and policies document as presented, and staff would then assign a corresponding board policy number to that. Or option number 2 would be to provide additional direction to staff and Capital Public Finance Group with updated goals and policies to be brought to the board at your next meeting. With that, we have Kathy from Capital Finance Group who is here. She's primed and ready to walk you through the document.
So this document that you all I know studied in a lot of detail, right? Is the required document to initiate the Community Facilities District proceedings. And it sets forth the parameters by which your board is comfortable with the district entering into a CFD, a Community Facilities District. In our last meeting, and I remember this slide was up for a very long time. And we went through each of these items because there's some general legal things that have to be included in all of these documents, but there are some specifics that are related to your policy direction and your goals for the local district. So the beginning of it is essentially kind of what's required, what the reason we're doing this. Because some of the customization starts coming in when we get to the financing priorities section. In the financing priorities section, one of the items we discussed is how do we want to use this money? And you recall, it's coming in incrementally, since this is a tax only on new development. As development occurs, we would be getting revenue in, but that revenue is gonna come in at a pretty low level at first and incrementally increase over time. So instead of assigning an expenditure for this revenue, what we received direction on last time, which I thought was great direction, is as part of the annual budget development process, we are gonna assign that funding source to a priority project that is allowed in our CFD. And you remember, we have our goals and policies, but we also have, when we actually form the CFD, we're gonna have some language that's gonna limit what you can spend the money on. It's not gonna be that limiting because you can spend it on public safety services, but we do need to define what that is. So that's basically the first area of customization. The next piece is really what we spent the bulk of the last meeting talking about. And I really was pleased with the direction that the board gave. I do a lot of these workshops and conversations, and I have to say, this is probably the clearest direction that I've gotten. And there was consensus among your board. That is not always the case. So I felt like we had a great conversation. I felt like we got really solid direction. So hopefully, what's memorialized in these bullets really reflects what your direction was. And I do want to go through that because I think this is important and it's going to set the tax rate conversation, which we're going to come back when we start the formation process. You remember the next step in the process is to take your direction and your policy statements and develop what's called a rate and method of apportionment. That rate and method of apportionment is the fancy way of saying your tax rates. We're going to follow your guidance here, but also try to stay as aligned with Diamond Springs as possible. So what we discussed, and as part of this kind of checklist, was that we were going to do a flat rate starting with the residential amount. And then off of that residential tax rate, we were going to make adjustments to the tax rate depending on the circumstances of the property. For example, if it was a multifamily residential unit, there would be a percentage discount off of the flat residential per unit rate. If it was an additional dwelling unit or an ADU, there would be a discount off of the rate. The thinking being that that's a smaller unit on the back of a residential property. It probably doesn't have the same impact as a full single family residential property. The non-residential property will be tied to that single family rate based on the average square footage of property in the district. So if you had an average 2,200 square foot home, it would be the same tax rate as a 2,200 square foot commercial building, non-residential building. We would make adjustments to the rate for low hazard occupancies. That rate would be adjusted downward, and high hazard occupancies, the rate would be adjusted upwards. And we can tie it to an outside source in defining what those occupancy hazard classifications are. We are not planning to assign a tax on undeveloped property. Again, this is for new development, meaning we're not taxing existing parcels. And I think that was another important piece of direction. This isn't a tax on your existing residents. This is something that's only going to apply to new development, because as new development comes into the district, it degrades the level of service we're able to provide to our existing community. And this is a way for them to mitigate that impact. And our special tax would include a 2% administrative fee. As the CFD gets larger, that administrative fee will also get larger. You may find that at some point, we don't need to collect the full 2%. This simply allows you to collect up to the 2%. Each year, the board will need to approve a tax roll. If you think that that administrative component has gotten too large and you just don't need to tax at that level, the board will have the discretion at that time to cap it. But this allows you to charge up to the legal maximum. In this document, it also identifies that the tax would be inflated based on a record, an index of record. We recommend the California Consumer Price Index. It's the same index that we use for just regular property tax adjustments. And the last piece, we aren't contemplating issuing bonds, so that's not the last piece, but we did include language that if some point in the future this gets large enough, the board could come back, amend the policies, and include provisions for the issuance of bonds. We don't envision that for several years, so we didn't want to include a bond policy in there at this point in time, because you're not going to be issuing bonds for probably 20+ years. And then finally, if there is a large project that would cause an undue burden on district staff, the district may impose a formation fee to that landowner. so that they can help offset the cost of formation and the administrative cost of implementing the CFD. As was in Diamond Springs policy and in your policy, this would be a condition of development. So again, we've talked to the county, we've talked to the city, in fact, we presented to the city council about making it a condition of development, and so far I haven't heard any objections. Anything new?
No, nothing new on that, or?
So, that seems to be going in the direction we were hoping. I always say seems to be because you never know until it's done. But I do think that we got nods. They didn't ask very many questions. And
They're familiar with the
Yeah.
screening process because they have several of them already in place in the city, so it wasn't something new to them.
I think because they're familiar with it, it wasn't something that they were feeling negative towards. So I do think that if you are comfortable with how your direction was memorialized in this document, you are welcome to take action, but I do want to give you the opportunity, if we need to make changes, if they're small in nature, we can actually do them in the meeting, and you could still consider approval. If they're more substantial, I'd want to actually bring it back to you at a subsequent meeting. But with that, I'm happy to open it up to questions and.
So is this gonna help us? This is gonna conform with Diamond Springs policy too, even though theirs doesn't exactly like this, will be okay.
It is okay, we'll be able to blend them enough, so, where we're gonna get into the conforming conversation is gonna be on the rate itself. And I think we set the stage here to ease a little bit of what their tax burden is, to hopefully make you a little bit more comfortable in the rate, while still enabling us to align with how they're charging. This will be a little bit more complicated than their flat tax per parcel, but I think it'll accommodate some of those unique circumstances where maybe we aren't gonna wanna charge the full amount for certain types of property, but we can still align them. We're able to align them. In addition, as long as we're not going to exceed their tax rate, if your board takes on the annexation, the board could at that time consider what their tax rates are as the maximum, and by resolution could change that to be more in line with your ultimate rates. So there's some flexibility there. The policies themselves are very aligned. Even though we've got some additional detail in it, there's only a couple things that I would love to change on Diamonds, but for the most part, it's how they're doing it in practice.
So will theirs change through the annexation and just will only be under ours, or will theirs stay separate?
So the existing properties that are already in the CFD will always remain in the CFD under that umbrella. But whoever the board is under the annexation will take on control of that. And remember, CFDs are a maximum rate. That board will then be able to charge up to the maximum on an annual basis. Any additional property, even in Diamond Springs boundaries, would be subject to this.
Okay.
Again, but they are very aligned. This isn't, even though we have a lot more, I think you saw the red line, you saw there were several changes. Some of them were just, since 2006, the CFD world has changed. We need to make a couple of changes. The rest of it is specific to your responses here, but you aren't significantly deviating from what they're doing.
You'll always have there's the original ones, but the rest of their boundary, once the annexation is complete, will fall under it.
For all.
And how many parcels are in there right now? Anybody know? Nobody knows?
Lori can tell you.
If off the top of my head, I'd say it under 20.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty small. We're only collecting around 70,000 right now in our CFD because we haven't had a lot of new construction since it's been put in place.
And your projects are,
We haven't had big ones.
yeah, they're not big ones and they're not kind of the oddballs that we're trying to address with some of these adjustments anyways. I think there's one multifamily complex that we've had some difficulty with. Yeah, but other than that, they're all pretty standard development projects, so it's nothing that would even fall into your subcategories.
So that's a small group on the subset.
It's really small.
Yeah, that's fine.
But it just shows, some of it is also the timing of when that went into effect. Development wasn't happening anywhere in California in 2008 to 2012, let's be real. So I think the timing of it was, it's catching a little more momentum post the Great Recession.
Okay. I don't have any questions on, I mean, the real, the crux comes down to the rates. That's really the big,
Yeah.
and that's where we need a lot of guidance, so we know what it's over and develop. Every possible time, you know, so we'll look for guidance on developing those rates.
And that'll be our next conversation. So once we have the policies, we can draft your rate method of apportionment for you to react to.
Anybody else have any?
So then, when you're talking about aligning the priorities, would it be reasonable to say, looking at a strategic plan, looking at programs that are in the strategic plan, and then how those are coming along, and ideally, we fund that with our operational expenditures and our capital funds and so forth, but at the end of the year, we come up and say, hey, something's short, or we can't do this. Is it reasonable to say we would align it with what our strategic plan is and the programs in that?
So what I would suggest is you leave yourself the flexibility to do that. So at budget development, which is what the policy says, at budget development, you as a board will then make that determination that this year we need to make sure it aligns with the strategic plan. But in 5 years from now, your priority may be, we've just got to replace that apparatus, and it just has to go towards that. So the policy right now leaves the board with the flexibility each year to determine that, but it doesn't preclude you from following your strategic plan, and I would encourage you to do that. You may also have a different plan for in Placerville and outside of Placerville. That's something the board may also decide. So I think I would leave yourself the flexibility to decide that on an annual basis.
Yeah, because this is gonna be two of these, one for inside Placerville and one side for everything outside of it.
Right.
Because Placerville is those funds we're talking about directing it towards the public safety building.
Right.
So that's separate, and we're not gonna be able to touch those funds, they'll be used for a joint
Well, we can
project.
touch it, but it would be for Placerville,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be for outside the city limits.
Hopefully, we'll use it for the joint facility if that
Right.
gets constructed, we'll let that build and use it some way like that. And then the rest of it's as our discretion.
Okay.
So we basically have three we'll be dealing with. We do a Diamond Spring small group, they will pass it on, which will be stuff, we'll know that's going, and then this other one.
And would Diamond Springs go into perpetuity? Would there be?
Yeah.
So
He's
there's
going to
no way
perpetuity.
know the, pull it in the maybe 2 as opposed to 3.
No, once it's there, you would have to go back and get all of those landowners to vote into the new one, and you just don't technically wanna do that.
You know, it's-
That's a campaign you're not gonna wanna run.
And then the other one was more of a question. I wasn't sure if we enact this policy today, is that a trigger point for Melrose tax? And is there some sort of a requirement that we would have to have multiple readings on this at a board meeting? I want to make sure legally we're not going to be put ourselves in any kind of jeopardy.
So this is simply an initiation policy. There are gonna be multiple board meetings, including a public hearing, before you
Perfect.
can legally form a CFD. So this is the first step to require, essentially, that a property annexes into or forms your CFD. Anytime there's a parcel that's forming it or annexing it, it will take board direction. For the initial formation, it will take 2 meetings. One is an initiation meeting where you'll adopt that rate and method of apportionment. The second meeting has to be 60 days after that first meeting, and you have to have a public hearing noticed, published in the newspaper and posted, and you will hold a public hearing as well as then the board action, which is to adopt a subsequent resolution. So there are 2 additional actions.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other comments or that, if there are any public comment? The other board comments? Or the motion then? Motion for up in 1 or up in 2?
You're comfortable adopting it today, it's 1. If you
I know.
wanna have us
Option one
look
is-
at it and bring it back in a later meeting, it's number 2.
Well, I did want to, the 2% admin fee, is that tacked on top of, or it's taken out of what the amount would be?
It's taken out of whatever tax rate you set.
Got it. Okay.
But you need to authorize the use of it on admin. Administering this CFD itself, that actually is something that's in CFD law. The 2% is a legal maximum, and you have to specify that you're going to do that upfront.
I'll make a motion to approve option one.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so do we need a roll call on this or?
Yeah.
We're gonna,
Director Heigerman,
aye,
Director Brennan.
Aye.
Director Edmiston.
Aye.
Director Oven.
Aye.
Director Gilchrist.
Aye.
Who was the second on that?
thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Item B, administrative, the 2023 combined special tax report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one of those annual events that we do, and there are certain direct charge levies that are subject to the local agency special tax and bond accountability act as codified in government code 50075 and 534110. The purpose of the acts is for county, city, schools, special districts to provide explicit public accountability for their voter approved special tax or bond. In addition to requiring the district's board to take action to provide for certain accountability measures, this law requires levying district boards to specifically account for their special tax or bond. General practice provides the district with 6 months to file a report prior to the end of the fiscal year. Please find the attached report that's generated by SCI Consulting as part of their ongoing contractual work for the district. The report has been filed with Alvarado County as required. The report is provided to the board as information and fulfills the county requirements. Staff would recommend the board receive and file. There is no formal action that is required. Attached to the staff report is that annual report from the county.
Any public comment on the report? Board comments on the report. So then, since no formal action is required, we'll receive and file. I mean, is everybody looked at it? If you haven't seen the map, it shows the special taxes we get from districts all around there. There were fire districts formed for fire stations way back when. Okay, moving right on. Operational surplus utility vehicle.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The district has 2 utility vehicles that have reached the end of their useful life for the fire district. The first vehicle is a 2007 Ford Expedition, and I'll skip all the bins so I can see them for you. This vehicle is unable to pass the required smog test without extensive repairs, and Chief Lohan is recommending this vehicle go to auction. The second vehicle is a 2009 Ford Expedition. This vehicle is also unable to complete the required smog test without extensive repairs. The Mosquito Fire Protection District is interested in acquiring the vehicle through donation. They did come and do an inspection of the vehicle, and their mechanic is aware of the mechanical issues with the vehicle. Staff requests the following actions from the board of directors. First, to declare both vehicles as surplus. The second action would be to authorize staff to auction vehicle number 1, which is the 2007 Expedition, and authorize staff to transfer ownership of vehicle number 2, the 2009 Ford Expedition, as is via donation to the Mosquito Fire Protection District. In the event that the Mosquito Fire Protection District opts to not transfer the ownership of the vehicle, authorize staff to auction 39 CF16, which is the 2009 Ford Expedition, and then attached to the staff report, or the staff reports from Chief Lohan on both of those areas. From that, that's the report. And it's your question.
Any public comment on that? Any board comments? So are we replacing these 2 vehicles?
We have replaced those.
We've already replaced.
We got the 2 pickup trucks, one via TOT funding and the other via apparatus funding.
Any comment on this? The process you recommend?
There's some book, I'm assuming there's some book value in the vehicles. And understanding we have high inflationary, the macroeconomic state of the US and the globe and what's occurring. If there's book value with them, why would we not want to auction both of them? And get that revenue in that could help with something else as opposed to a donation. And I'm just thinking finance wise.
The auction value of those vehicles is probably gonna be somewhere around $1,500. I mean, if there's, you're not gonna be able to loss more than. Knowing that, you know, just kind of the partnership and the relationships we have with the other surrounding fire districts. Your point is well taken, that we're seeing inflationary pressures and those type of things. Those same inflationary pressures are hitting mosquito, which, you know, they've been challenged. As much, if not greater than us, so it's a good neighbor. There is limited value to that vehicle, but to provide them that resource, there's value to our agencies as well. With them having vehicles.
And the repair value, so the repair values for the redoing the smog, what's that amount looking like?
I believe on both of those, if I'm not mistaken, the motor has to be pulled to make the repairs that are necessary to be smooth. So that was kind of that. We're not gonna make that investment.
You guys talked about it in that round.
No, but I think what the chief just brought forward, I mean, those are old vehicles.
Yeah.
They're exhausted. Yeah, it's time to move on those things and basically just it takes in essence, a liability off our hands in various levels, especially economic liability, and the fact that, you know, to keep dumping money in it, and maintenance, tires, you know, all that kind of stuff. They just need to get them off the roster. And I would agree. I think, you know, there's gonna be such limited value on the second one auction. I think there's more value than just the donation to that fire district. And relations and that sort of thing.
I don't know how to say it. Don't get me wrong, I disagree with anything you're saying, it's just that, the auction sounds good from a, getting the revenue back into the county or into county fire. The donations, and I'm not sure I see, not that there would have to be a reciprocal, because the nature of a donation or tightening is that you don't get a reciprocal yet. Some agencies, are they gonna remember that when county fire, gives them vehicles down the road?
You know, I think that, Mosquito will be very appreciative. I mean, we do have a good relationship with them. I mean, Engine 25 is their first due engine when they don't have any volunteers that can respond. And if their volunteer command staff does not have vehicles, that puts our duty chief, our duty battalion on the road to Mosquito to fill that role more Cal Fire resource. So having donations of vehicles across districts, I mean, Delaware Hills donated engines to Pioneer. Utilities have been donated across boundaries for a long time. Yeah, I would not, they will be appreciative. I don't know that that would be something tangible where, you know, in worst case, you're gonna vote this way because. But they will be, they will be very appreciative. Yeah. Looking at the fire service and fire industry in this county as a whole, it's the right thing to do. And, you know, I think if that vehicle had value of $20,000-$30,000 at auction, this would probably be a much different conversation. It's 1,500 might be very optimistic on what we get for the other one. It could be significantly less.
Well, I have a couple of vehicles that are 250,000, but miles.
There's some hard miles.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And then when you also factor in, when you look at the miles, but also the motor life on them, because a lot of times, these are all previous chief officer vehicles, so. You know, if they've been out on strike teams, which both of them have been, those, they run for 24 hours, so. The miles aren't really a true calculation.
Hours on them.
No, so not civilian miles.
And they're not civilian.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So do we have, so we need to give direction on this. We go with, auction the first vehicle and give the second vehicle away to Mosquito? Is that what everybody's leaning towards?
Yeah, I would move that we go with recommendation to staff, recommendation.
They're asking which one we want.
Staff would actually request all four of those bullet items. The board needs to
Okay.
declare them both as surplus,
Okay,
and then we can auction one, we'll donate one, and the fourth bullet is just
okay,
in the event for some reason Mosquito changes their mind based on the repairs, we're clear to just auction.
My motion would be to just approve the recommendation.
Okay. You have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we need a roll call because there's some money involved. You're giving away stuff.
Director Kreisman,
Aye.
Director Brennan.
Aye.
Director Edmiston.
Aye.
Director Oden.
Aye.
Director Gilchrist.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Okay. Board matters. I don't think we have any specific board matters.
Yeah, we don't have any agenda.
And committee reports, strategic planning, nothing. Budget and finance, I'll read you the minutes. We met, finance committee met on October 17th. It was Chief Cordero, Chief Phelps, Director Gilchrist, and myself and Michael Zach was there as well. He's attending all of our quarterly budget, finance meetings. We went over the monthly trending of expenditures versus the annual budget. Chief Dutch reviewed the expenditures versus the budget to the period ending September 30th, 2023. Public safety building, Chief Cordero indicated that the district is waiting to receive the check from the state controller's office. Is that gonna be the big check, the giant check, or the paper check?
We really want the paper check, the big check will be nice too.
23-24 operating budget, Michael Huseniak reviewed the county revenue and expenses through September 30th, 2023, and summarized the report for both El Dorado County Fire Operations and El Dorado County JPA. The CPA, Michael, I'll call him, update and scope of work discussion. Michael will attend El Dorado County Fire Quarterly Finance Committee meetings, review the annual budget and reserves, prepare a detailed quarterly to date summary of El Dorado County operations and El Dorado County JPA revenues and expenditures, advise on budget amendments that might be required during the fiscal year, and will notify El Dorado County Fire of any significant changes occurring in the county that will affect El Dorado County financials. GovBest accounts payable software, testing of the software is still ongoing. Hopefully that thing will get going eventually. Chief Dutch has provided inputs on salaries, pension, and overtime costs. So we'll be able, once that's running, we'll be able to run that software. Payroll software, El Dorado County Fire District will be moving into the implementation phase of the Kronos Ready software within the next 4 to 6 weeks. First responder fee, El Dorado County is implementing the deposit process through Whitman to receive these fees for fire EMS services. Regarding the AFG water tender, SCUBA and SAFER grants, the SCUBA grant will not be approved, and the water and SAFER grants are still under review. DSP ECF annexation, the feasibility study is completed and will be submitted to LAFCO once totally completed. The DSP attorney is working through CalPERS processes for the DSP classic employees. There's some issue in how they merge with us in CalPERS. SB 600, Director Gilchrist and Director Kaiserman are working on a PowerPoint presentation to seek support from the CSDA and other federal agencies for a letter to be prepared by Senator Alvarado Gil's office to complete a study encompassing the requirements for SB 660. And met today to work on that.
Virtually done, we're just gonna publish it.
Yeah. Financial stability measures, Director Gilchrist and Kaiserman work on a list of financial topics for the communications committee. The measures are subject to a review by the finance committee. And we adjourn good. 11:12.
Just one edit, we're finalizing the feasibility study.
Oh, finalizing
It's,
it.
it's draft, final draft, I think is being.
We're in hopefully final draft.
I'll be saying,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, once it's completed, right? It's a draft. We gave them all the comments there. And give us back to us. And then it goes to LAFCO with some additional funding and the LAFCO process.
Fairly whole packet.
Okay, communications and outreach.
Push the meeting to 11 to face my workload. What's
So, I'd like to do facilities and equipment. Human resources, no meeting. PSB CF annexation working group, we didn't meet this month. All right. Correspondence and communication, fire and response statistics.
I think Mr. Chair, in your packet, you'll see the run stats for both our engines and our medical units. The engine companies ran a total of 644 calls in the month of September. Medic units ran 1,038. There's also we're still having some issues with getting the detailed reports out of Image Trend. I was able to pull a couple that are new to your packet, a couple sheets back, that give us our average response times, percentage of times that we made that 9-minute mark, and then the median response time. So hopefully we'll continue moving towards getting all of these reports just pulled straight out of Image Trend, but it's still for some reason pulling all of the engines in the county, not just county fire resources. So it's not.
So this report is not our county, it's all the engines, right? But the dials and things.
The dials that have CAL FIRE engines, if engine 49 comes to a call in Boswell, that's noted in there, affecting that, so.
So this is really moving towards a dashboard, which I think is phenomenal, and being able to see how things move. So Keith, hats off to you and your team.
That they're working on it, but the rest of the reports, hopefully, like I said, we'll get there. It's just a timing issue with, our personnel that running Image Trend and then being on duty and having time to contact Image Trend and going through this, but.
I get it, this is the engines. Is there a potential where medic could also be added into this as well, or does that come out of a different system?
Good question. I'll have to ask. And, I would think so.
Yeah, must have both.
Yeah, because both of them are being, because they're entering that, so we should be able to pull both,
Okay.
all of the data out of the industry.
Okay.
If I can say on them.
I've got some thoughts that I think I'm gonna bring up in the communications meeting about some drill down capabilities, not to do here, but in communications.
So they could show it by medic unit or overall, or however.
Right now, I don't have the ability to filter it down. That's the issue that we're trying to work through. Which is odd, because with a brand new program, with all this sophistication, you think you'd be able to go through and select the ones you want. No, but
Maybe, what is a configuration aspect that.
something right behind the scenes that has to be done to make that work. But on my generic front side, I don't have that built.
Okay, fire chief's report.
Just a few things to bring the board up to speed on. As previously mentioned for the city of Placerville, we did do a presentation to the council. Shouldn't say we, Kathy did a presentation to the council on the CFP project. We're continuing to work with city staff on land acquisition for the public safety building. And then we have not yet scheduled the date with Senator Alvarado for the check presentation. We're going to hear back from her staff on that. On the JPA front, I think as the board is well aware, the replacement of Medicaid 9 was issued, that RFP to Eldorado Hills, and that transition should happen on before November 15th. Eldorado Hills and CAL FIRE, they're working through that transition piece. And then the JPA director, Bill, I thought was going to be there, he's beautiful sitting out there, but anything outside of. At our last JPA board meeting, we gave him authorization to move forward on applying for his administrative position. And then he's also looking for an operations manager position. JPA board gave him some direction to kind of fine tune some of the things in that position prior, and then that was brought back to our next board meeting. As far as the district goes, we had the Make-A-Wish event on October 3rd, Station 28. It was very well attended by Make-A-Wish staff, community members, family members, we had some board members present. We also had 6 or 8 fire engines there. It was a great event. We had a great turnout from CAL FIRE to be there. So thank you for that. Helped out. And then as we came up through the city, we stopped at the bell tower, paraded all the engines in. and, tremendous amount of public business owners. One of the business owners came out and gave him a little, historical firefighter, picture thing. The mayor, made him honorary mayor for the day, and then ring the bell tower, and I would guess it was probably 75, 100 people that were kind of in that little arena, and they were on station kind of doing their thing. It was really a great deal, and we're really fortunate and blessed to be part of that event. Members from County Fire and Chief Daniels from Diamond Springs recently completed the pre-build meeting at Pierce Manufacturing in Wisconsin for our engines and our ladder truck. The estimated time frame for those to be built is June of 24. They did provide me on here to the board. These are just conceptual drawings of the engines and not really engines to our engines as the build goes. And then there's also a very conceptual drawing of the ladder trucks. So the same changes, similar stuff. Yeah, so there'll be basically identical to 17. There is a short model and medium model. The short model is about 12 inches shorter. There's been conversations on two of them are going to be the short model, or one of them is going to be the short model. Some more dialogue. Got it. So, and we have time to make that adjustment. And then also waiting to hear back. I reached out, had a conversation with the tribe on the logos for the ladder truck. You'll notice on the front, we have the Red Hawk logo. Reaching out to them, do they want the Red Hawk logo, or they also have their Shield Springs Band Miwok Indians logo? My kind of influence to them was the Red Hawk logo is probably going to be a better logo on that ladder truck. And then we'll do something on the backside, some gold leaf, proudly serving, or supported by Red Hawk Casino and Shield Springs Band Miwok Indians. But that's the overall. The ladder itself will be black to match the top of the vehicle, but for the drawing's sake, it's in white. But that's where that's at. Kudos to our guys that went back there, and Chief Daniels from Diamond Springs for meeting with Pierce and going through that whole thing, and looking forward to getting those completed and on the road for us.
Chief, could I get a digital version of these?
I can reach out to Chief Luann and see if he's got that available. That's what it came on, but yes, I'm forward,
Okay.
And they're gonna drive those vehicles out here?
Pierce, they have terms,
Did we accompany him on that or no?
they have drivers. It's actually a pretty good job. They just drive brand new fire trucks where they need to go, and then they fly back and get the next one, and everything we drive and stuff.
To see the country.
The district also received an additional $1,200 donation from that Neary Trust Fund. They said this one's the final closeout. It was $1,200 and something dollars. We just got that last week. With that, we're looking at a conversation with staff. We're gonna put a community sign similar to the rest of our stations. We have that piece of property on Crazy Horse subdivision that's south of Highway 50 in the County Park area. So we're gonna put one of those signs there. We may or may not have one of those fire rating signs that has a little dial on fire severity. And then we're also in communication with South Carolina states to see about putting in their similar sign at their entrances. So the funds that some of the funds that we received from that donation would probably fall into that Shield Springs intent of what those. So we're working on doing that. As mentioned earlier, 3 of our PAOs will start their bridge program to suppression on 23rd. We do have 2 firefighter paramedics and 2 PAOs that are coming online November 27th. Those additional employees will actually be at full staffing. We are losing 1 PAO next week. Good individuals. I think the program isn't really a good fit for them. So good paramedic, good individual, just going back to the private side. Chief Williams is continuing to work with an engineer regarding some of the issues at Station 28. The good news is it sounds like it's maybe just kind of a stucco issue and maybe a lightweight construction issue, not so much structural concerns we had. And then they looked at the retaining wall in the back that's leaning out, and they've got some relatively easy fixes to that with drilling and pinning. The engineer didn't think it was nearly as significant issues. We did find them and saw the wall moving. So we'll work on getting that stuff done. We've got a couple of Halloween events that are coming up, EDSO's trunk or treat, Paul Pines has trunk or treat, and then City of Placerville Halloween event, we'll be involved in all of those. We did attend the Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council meeting on September 25th. The Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council is interested in becoming part of the WISE community, so there was a really good turnout from the community there, as well as fire personnel. A lot of good questions, some good dialogue. I did get asked when we're going to open Station 74 again. Had that conversation, it was well received. And then yesterday at Fire Safe Council, I did have a conversation with Angel Ball, who is the head of the Strawberry Fire Safe Council. They want to make sure we'll be there in May for their annual community event. Records, keep you abreast of when that is. So hopefully it will be there. With the Count Park situation, all of the data requests from AP Trend has been completed and submitted. I'm assuming there'll probably be some additional things that come in that the additional information will take care of. Staff, being Kathleen's working on the draft edits to the board policies that we received in Diamond Springs. We hope to get a attempt to do that, but our attempt is unavailable. So when we met and went through those, Kathleen took a bunch of good notes and should be working on those edits. And then next week, Saturday to Saturday, I'll be out of town. I'll be back east with the Chief Gallagher. We'll be the point of contact and cover and get things up there now. And a report. Nothing.
Any comments?
What you and I talked about is RFP at Cameron Park. To be clear, the data we provided them is just data. There hasn't been anything from a RFP to say, tell us what it was discussed.
Cameron Park is contracted with AP Trident to conduct a feasibility study. And so there's a lot of basic data sheets,
But nothing, but,
not an RFP.
okay, that's what, yeah. I think that,
Contained within them, there's a lot of data they wanted on our financials, our costs, our employee costs, benefit package costs. There's a lot of information in that, but there is no RFP.
I think you guys on the Diamond Springs annexation, it just seems to me going forward without understanding a bid to do it would open the door up for a protest. I would imagine.
I don't know. We don't know what their boards do.
No, I mean, have a laugh.
Oh, if they're gonna go through a merger? Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing.
I just thinking out loud.
I don't think they know. Brad, you correct me if I'm wrong. Feel free.
Not very on the spot.
Not that we're a public comment, but.
No.
Okay, board comments on in general. Anybody have board comments, anyone you?
I've got a few, just, was at the JPA meeting, eye opener. I've got the guest speaker next Wednesday, put together a presentation. Chief's gonna give me some material for mapping. Be able to lend the map up so people understand broad coverage of the county and then each individual division, what they have to. Had some one-on-one time with the JPA director, really good discussion. 2x1 schedule with Garland, Supervisor Garland. And there's a town hall meeting on the Cameron Park fire situation at Cameron Park Country Club on November 9th. Open to anyone. The Shingle Springs Chamber is sponsoring it, Colette Teal is emceeing it. Joe Robinson is. GM at Cameron Park is presenting. And two of their board members will be there.
Yes, earlier this month I got to be, I was actually honored and I learned a lot to be part of the process for the RFP for Medic 89. A lot of things learned different ways, but what I noticed during the actual presentation, there is a lot of note taking. They were asking questions about the POA program and the evaluating agencies were all transporting agencies. And I think some of the questions they were asking weren't necessarily for the RFP, but for their own agencies because they were kind of intrigued by the program we have. I think they saw a lot of good in it. And then expanding on that, I mean, earlier today we honored Brad and Steven, but those guys are pretty remarkable. And that was one of my little statements in the presentation was, look what we're bringing in rather than scraping the bottom of the barrel. We're bringing in very high quality individuals. So, yeah, so I picked up a lot from that process. And I think that from what I saw, we're on the right track with that program. I think it's going to help us out. In the long run, as those people grow with our organization, we can bring them up in other roles. Very good leaders and managers. So, yeah, good experience.
I think I can dovetail on that. We did our best to build what we felt would be a really good program, and I think the proof's in the pudding with the quality of individuals that we're getting. Where the rubber meets the road, and the success of our program is we did a lot of. I mean, this was a new thing for our county and for our agency with having non-suppression folks in firehouses. We did a lot of vetting with our crews and leaders' intent and all of those things. And if you, in my opinion, if you can't mirror the quality of our rank and file we have and the acceptance that they've had, and you go to the fire stations where we have the PAOs, and if you don't know the names and faces, you don't know who is who. And I think our firefighters, I say firefighters, through chief officers, our firefighters are a huge reason why we're being successful. Because in keeping tabs on our PAOs, they love the fact that they're accepted, they're part of the team, they're just like everybody.
Yeah.
And that's the key piece in my opinion. You can mirror what we're doing, but if your people don't accept them, and our folks, I mean, we had 8 of them that applied for the bridge program, 8 out of 12. These are people that have had, Brad's been a paramedic for 20-something years with no interest really in being a firefighter, and seeing and working with our people, he's looking at a career, he says it's midlife crisis, but it's kind of urgent. I want to be part of that. They just didn't know. So kudos to our PAOs, but really our rank and file, that's where the success of this program is.
And I guess a further mark of the program is, correct me if I'm wrong, but when Eldorado Hills threw their last job announcement, it was basically a PAO program, right? Mm-hmm. So it sounds like they're new medical PA. So they're probably in some ways modeling what we're doing.
You can model it, but if you don't have.
Right, it has to be, no, that's,
yeah, I'm with you there.
that's an important
That's
consideration.
I think we really keep down it. So hats off to our crews that done. Yeah, it's better than good folks.
It's a very successful program, and other agencies are trying to emulate. Other agencies have done this and failed because they separated.
Mhm.
And so we did a great job. That's of everyone, for pulling that off and being so successful. And our retention rate has been amazing, and we have a list of candidates, so we need them to fill other positions. Where we were struggling for the current paramedics.
That's our list.
We have probably a dozen or so applicants that we just not applied for.
No, copy.
We have 12 PAOs that are online.
It'd be interesting to see if they go to Hills. I'll just leave it at that.
It'll be a pickup one.
I get it, but no significant, that's right. They'll have some challenges based on what I've heard from their labor, how the culture.
The culture, yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Well, I think if you just look at nationwide and do a case study, fatal flaw in a single role system is always that separation. Right, between medic and firefighter. You make that separation, that's the fatal flaw.
And that's where, you know, our folks in the station can embrace these folks. And you said, if you didn't know the names and faces, you wouldn't be able to pick them up in that station. That's the success.
Future agenda items? Anybody? Nope. Our next, scheduled board meeting will be November 16th. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Want to adjourn?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did you get that? Catherine?
Yeah, thank you.
Second, I think.